So when you say, well, I mean, I don't mind political ads, well, it depends, doesn't it? Because it is a giant, giant megaphone, and it can drown out all other speech. So that's why I am vigilant about it. So I'll give you an example that I think most of the room can relate to. Washington Post did a good story about how the Clintons had raised $3 billion over their careers, okay? They raised it through their foundation, through campaign donations, and actually right into their pockets, okay? Now, people did not give the Clintons $3 billion for their health. They just didn't. They did it to bribe them, okay? And what did the... And corporations don't give you money out of the goodness of their heart or for charity. They do it for return on investment. And so, and the first time they give to a politician, it's an experiment. The second time they give to a politician, it was a good investment. And that unfortunately describes most of our politicians. So what did the Clintons buy with that $3 billion? They bought a giant megaphone. And yes, Donald Trump overcame it because he got $5 billion in free media in the election cycle. $5 billion, okay? But who did not overcome that megaphone? Every other Democratic contender. They were crushed by that microphone. And the reality is the Clintons shut out the speech of all other people with the bribes that they received. And I cannot abide by it. I cannot abide by it. We need our democracy back. So, and I don't want you to get the wrong idea that I'm just picking on Democrats. Obviously, the Republican Party is, on the national level, is about 99.9% corrupt. They take the money, they do their bidding. They're the most corrupt party in American history. So, but on the issue of speech, so there can be reasonable regulations. Every other developed country does it. But Tucker, for a guy who's as vigilant about protecting speech, I am curious, and again, this is genuine, why you don't support the free speech rights of Colin Kaepernick.
That's pretty funny. You know, I was just worrying if like Nike pitchman had enough power in our society. I think he's okay. I've never challenged his speech rights. I mean, ever. I've never challenged anybody's speech rights. I mean, there's not a wacko I wouldn't defend on speech grounds, and I have defended a lot of crazy people on speech grounds, including Colin Kaepernick, who I think is a buffoon. Whatever. I don't think it's that. My problem with Kaepernick relates back to what I was saying earlier about what unites us in our. I mean, it's inherently, to borrow a term from the academic left, problematic to have a ruling class that hates the country it rules. And so you can't actually, you really have to sort of buy into all the hokey patriotic stuff if you're in charge, almost by definition. You really have to. You got to put your hand over your heart and recite the Pledge of Allegiance and the Star Spangled, or think of a new set of whatever, of symbols to honor. If you don't like those, make up new ones. But you have to have those things, or else you can't lead, because you can't lead people you don't care about, actually. Empathy is a prerequisite for leadership. If you don't love your children, they will wind up in rehab. If you're an officer and don't care about the safety of your men, they will die. If you're an employer and you really don't care about your employees, like, your company will fail. I'm not making a touchy-feely point, I'm making a practical one. The people who run the country, who derive the greatest benefit, I'm not simply talking about our political class, I'm talking about our finance class, to name one among a couple examples, the tech oligarchs. These are people who have deep contempt for the population of the country. And I'm not even making a moral judgment about that. Like, lots of people have ideas and attitudes I hate, but I'm just saying it doesn't work. You will run the country into the ground unless you really care, and they really don't. And the Kaepernick thing is just like so perfect, it's so cynical. If you want to have a conversation about police brutality, I used to be a police reporter. I think it's a super interesting topic. I think anyone with power, including cops, can misuse it. That's the worst case scenario. I'm totally opposed to it, okay? But let's be honest, this is a sideshow, okay? That makes a certain kind of person feel virtuous for supporting. It's not about speech. Again, I would never challenge his speech rights in a million freaking years.
But see, Tucker, and I'm giving you the perspective of other folks here, which is that for you, it seems like a sideshow, but for African Americans who are being jailed and killed disproportionately, it is not. It's not a curiosity. So, for example, 60.
I'm sorry. I'm not. I just want to be totally clear because I can sometimes talk too fast to explain myself. I'm not saying. That's why I said I was a police reporter. I think that people abuse their power, cops included. I don't think the issue is a sideshow. I'm just saying, like, this rich guy pretending to speak for all African Americans, like, spare me. You know what I mean?
No, I don't, and I'll tell you why. I get what you're saying, but who is going to speak for them? Is the media going to pay attention to a middle class guy, to a poor guy? They pay no attention whatsoever. And so people object to the way that Colin Kaepernick did it. Well, oh my God, he did it in the middle of the national anthem. Why did he do it in the middle of the national anthem? To get your attention. And the reality is that's the only thing that works when a rich guy who's a famous athlete does something in the middle of something that you're paying attention to. And so now we should have that conversation about police brutality against African Americans. Perfectly done by Colin Kaepernick.
But, that's sort of a fair point in that there are symbolic figures who call attention to an important issue who haven't mastered the details. I get that. I don't think that Rosa Parks was like an expert on the Civil Rights Act, but that doesn't make her less powerful a symbol or less important a figure in American history. So I think that's a fair point. I guess what I'm saying is we haven't had that conversation about police brutality and race at all. Because everyone's so freaking terrified to say anything that no one can talk about anything. You have to sort of just nod and be like, oh yeah, whatever the piety of the day is, I'm totally on board. Mr. Commissar, completely. I don't disagree in any way. I'm not going to ask any questions because I'd be disobedient. You will punish me. It's like we don't have real conversations because people are terrified they're going to be punished if they have the conversation. So the first question I would ask is a database question, which shouldn't scare any of us. The facts should never scare us. And because we live in a large industrialized society that's most sophisticated in human history, we have a ton of data on everything. How many kids hurt on seesaws last year? It's knowable. How many people, do you die younger from smoking menthol cigarettes than unfiltered? We know that. There's nothing we don't know, okay? So numbers don't tell the whole story, obviously, but they're a starting point for real conversation. So how common is this? Are white officers more likely to fatally shoot black suspects than black officers are? I don't know. If you even say that, it's like, I don't want to know. Stop with that spooky science stuff. I've made up my mind. The only way that you solve a problem is by honestly talking about it with the sum total of what you know about it, and that's exactly what we cannot do because the purpose is not to fix the problem. It's for some people to feel like good people as opposed to all of them, and others to maintain their control over the population.